Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's the 20th of December. It's Wednesday, 2023, coming to the end here of 2023 as we quickly approach that big holiday, December 25th, of course, Christmas, followed 7 days later by New Year's Day and the introduction of 2024. A new year, new goals, a nice clean start to kind of start over and wipe the slate clean for what was attempted and either succeeded or failed, regardless. Let that go at the end of 2023. Don't let it hold you back. Anything that you've succeeded with in 2023, set new goals, new accomplishments to take to the next level in 2024. That's my philosophy. Not that it has anything to do necessarily with superstition, but it's just a nice, good, round end and start date to set goals in life so you're not just chasing something indefinitely. It's nice to put a time limit on it. If you chased it long enough and you're not catching it, maybe chase something else or change your tactic at the end of the year as an inspiration to remind you we don't live forever and to get a move on. Try other avenues, try other attack vectors, other techniques, and give you something also to look forward to rather than just repeating the same things over and over. And then one year gets to feel like the next. And when you look back on it, there's no reason any particular year stands out. Like, oh, that's the year I finally did this, or that's the year I finally, realized I wasn't getting anywhere with that plan and switched the plan. Stuff like that it's a great way, in my life anyway, to set new goals and to let go of stuff, as I mentioned. Either successes or failures, doesn't matter. Let go of them either way. Move on to the next thing, even if it includes taking that thing you succeeded at to the next level. You'll see I've got the live mixer build out. If you remember, we built this a couple of months ago, and it's got the screen built into it. And the reason I have this out right now is I need to test this external drive that MovesSpeed has sent to us for review. Now this drive, it's an external solid state drive that runs at USB 3.2 Gen2 times 2. And it's that last number 2 at the end that's tricky because most motherboards don't have this. In fact, when I was testing any systems that I've been testing here, if you've been watching for a while, that I have a SanDisk Extreme external SSD that runs Gen 3.2 Gen2 by 2. And I've only found 2 systems that supported that. And why it's so important is I paid extra for that drive because of that little by 2 at the end. It doubles the speed. The regular USB 3.1, 3.2, it'll run that at 1,000 megabytes per second on the reads and the writes. But this thing can do 2,000, as so can the SanDisk Extreme I was talking about. And to find a machine that will support that 2000 has been a little bit of a struggle. So I don't know if the 3.2 Gen2 Gen2 by 2 didn't catch on, but we're seeing more and more accessories coming out with it. But very few motherboards. I don't think I have a mini PC that supports it. If so, I can't think of which one it is. So I thought, there's got to be something I've got here that's got USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2. And I thought I'd go to my latest builds, the Z790 builds, which is what this is. This is a Z790. The processor doesn't really matter. It's the chipset. So we have a Z790, and it does say on the ASRock website that this board and the 14900K board that we just did with the Z790 Riptide from ASRock, they both offer one USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2 port. And it's the one that goes to the front port header on the motherboard, the front port header on your case. So your case needs to have that USB 3 port, the USB 3 Type C port, which we have up here on the top. Most NZXT cases have that. A lot of other brands have it too, but I'm just bringing that up just in case you want an example. Some motherboards don't have that funky little rectangular connector for the front USB Type C. In this case, it's a perfect match with this motherboard in this case, or with the Riptide motherboard. And I think we have another H7 case. This is the Flow. I think that one over there is the regular. I think the H5 case also, most cases from NZXT should support that Type-C. As long as they've got the Type-C on the case, it should support anything that'll plug into. Where there's some confusion is you might have a system that advertises USB 4, and you might think, well, that'll cover my USB 3.2 Gen2x2 because it's backwards compatible. It's only backwards compatible as far as the USB port goes. It'll still transfer the data, but even USB 4 is not going to move that data at 2,000 megabytes per second. The only technology we have right now in late December 23 is USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2. And it's that little by 2 moniker that changes everything and is not compatible with any other form of USB at this time. So it will work with USB 3 or above, let's say 1,000 megabytes per second. But if you want to get that 2,000, that's a significant improvement in performance, 2,000 megabytes per second. You're definitely going to want to pick a motherboard, or make sure if you're buying a mini PC that it includes USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2. It maddens me how the committee that decides these standards just kept adding on to the name. It's ridiculous. It's starting to feel like a train. Are they going to keep doing that? And then we're going to have, a bunch of other words we're going to keep adding on to the, and then the standard, in this one. So I don't know what's so special about USB 3.2 by 2 Gen 2 that they limit it to just the one on the front of the case and not on the back of the motherboard. I don't know why it's so rare to find on machines. I don't know that that's going to improve with USB 4. That's where it seems like all the motherboard manufacturers, especially the mini PC manufacturers, are all pursuing USB 4. It may be a cost issue. It may be a chipset limitation where only certain chipsets support it. I'd have to Google it, Wikipedia it. Maybe there's some YouTube videos that explain it. I don't care that much. As long as I get my 2,000 megabytes per second, I don't care how it works. I just want it to work. What I like about this is, at least, unlike Thunderbolt, where if I get a really fast external drive with Thunderbolt, until recently, I can only use it with another computer with Thunderbolt. But now with USB 3 backwards compatibility, I could take that drive to a standard customer computer, plug it in, and use it to transfer data or do whatever maintenance or work I have to do as a working computer technician. However, the Thunderbolt drives are very expensive due to Intel licensing royalty costs. So USB is much, much cheaper to implement, and it's universal in the sense that if I decide to use this as a toolkit for my technical business, I can use it here in the office with an appropriate PC to get that 2,000 megabytes per second, and then use it on any customer's computers that have any USB at all, even going back 20 years. It'll just work slower, but at least it will read and write and be able to access my tools that I use as a tech as fast as possible. So the limitation won't be on the drive. If it's running slow, it's because the customer's computer is slow. There's nothing I can do about that with regards to speeding up the drive, except the folks over at Silverstone, they do make add-in PCIe cards. So if you have a system now and you want to add PCIe 3.2 Gen 2 by 2, I'm sure the folks over at Silverstone have an add-in card that you can plug in, assuming you've got the space in your computer. Obviously, it wouldn't affect a mini PC. Obviously, it wouldn't work if you were plugging it into a USB port, because the slowest part of that is going to be your fastest speed. So basically, you can just buy an add-on card, plug it in there. And the add-on card, usually Silverstone usually sells them two ways. One where the USB port's on the back of the card, and one where the USB port is internal, so you can hardwire it to the front of the case if your case has the USB 3 Type-C port on the front, but your motherboard doesn't have it. That's a way that you can achieve it, so you don't have to replace your whole motherboard. Okay, Jim KG3N mentions the AMD version of the live mixer board also has the 20 gig port. Yes, in fact, that was one of the justifications. And I mentioned it in a couple of shows ago, that I bought it strictly because I knew it had that. And then I decided the other night to just look through what I had so I could make this video. And otherwise, I'd have to postpone this review until we build the AMD Live Mixer, which is coming up. I think we're going to do that on the Friday after next. So not this Friday, but next Friday. So it'll fall right between Christmas and New Year. That'll be our end of the year build. And I'm really looking forward to building the Live Mixer, the B650B motherboard, is it? Along with an AMD Ryzen 9 7950X. Parts for that are still coming in. Not quite sure how I'm going to cool that yet, or what case I'm going to put it in. I better figure that out right quick, huh? All right, so the MoveSpeed, what makes this so special versus, say, the SanDisk or the Western Digital versions of external SSDs that I have that are also, you know, promoting the 2000 megabit speed or megabyte speed. And that is going to be price. This is far more aggressively priced. And furthermore, it's on sale right now at Amazon with $50 off. And they've additionally offered us a coupon code that you can use. I'm not making any commission on this. This is just for your benefit if you want to buy it. The sale, the coupon, I don't know how long the $50 off at Amazon is good for, but the coupon code is good till the end of January. So you don't have to worry about this time of year with all the spending. It may not be a good time to buy something for yourself if you've been buying things for other people and found yourself in debt, as we tend to do this time of year. But let me pull up the Amazon page and show you how this is marketed. And then you can decide for yourself something you're interested in. Let me go over here to my Amazon page. Hello to everybody, by the way. Welcome in. Thank you for joining me. Here we go. So the MoveSpeed, it's called an RX20. Now they make it in two versions, a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte. Now they've sent us the 1 terabyte version for our review. And it will work on any USB port. However, it only comes with a USB Type-C cable. So if you want to plug it into a Type A, you're going to need to get a different cable or an adapter. When I told you the price, I wasn't joking. It is $140 minus the $50 coupon, right? So now we're down to what, 90 bucks? And then we have an additional coupon code in the video notes that'll take it down even below that. So you're getting a terabyte that can move up to 2000 megabytes per second. And this casing is all metal. This is actually, this thing weighs like half a pound, over half a pound. So it's built really, really well, and it dissipates heat really well. I ran the H2 testw test on it where it writes across the entire drive. And I believe it had this drive filled up in 90 minutes along with the verification. So it's quick. And that was on a, let me rephrase that. That was on my Generation 8 laptop that I tested that. I haven't tested it at the 2000. That's probably going to fill up in 45 minutes. It's really quick. So as I mentioned here, well, let's just look at what they're saying about it. 1 terabyte portable SSD features blah, 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 20 times faster than original SSD. Transfer 2 gigs of 4K UHD video files in just 1 second. Ensuring lightning fast game loading and file transfer times, making Ray X20 portable 1 terabyte and the best choice for project work. AX20. MoveSpeed 1 terabyte external solid-state drive. Adopts a TLC chip plan. A zinc alloy shell with efficient heat dissipation. They did an 80-hour rigorous test, 16 hours of high and low temperature aging test, 8 hours of 2000 times of dormancy test, 48 hours of continuous transmission test. That's way more than I tested. Enables fast and safe storage of your photos, videos, music, and files, lower power consumption, fast heat dissipation, reliable data transmission. 5-year warranty on this, by the way. Scrolling down further, Dimensions 3.2 inches by 3.2 inches at just 0.59 inches in height. The weight just over a half a pound. And while they're promoting it for PS5 use, which of course is great based on its looks, obviously kids would love this thing because of how cool it looks. It also supports Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Android. So you can plug this into your phone to back up your photos and things off your phone. Comes with the USB-C cable. Now, it's a Type-C to Type-C cable, and I recommend you keep that cable close by. Don't lose it. Not all USB cables are created the same, and if you buy some cheap USB cable here at Amazon, you likely will never get the 2000 megabyte per second speeds, because the cheaper USB Type-C cables don't have all of the internals are different, believe it or not. And that's why some of these USB Type-C cables can cost $30 or more versus buying that $3 cable. So since this comes with a cable that is ideal for data transfer at these speeds, I would keep it close by with the drive itself, so you don't have to purchase another one, because as I mentioned, they can cost, just the cable can cost half as much as the drive. Comes with a cable suitable for smartphones, laptops, MacBook, Xbox, backwards compatible with all the other USB standards, real plug and play. Unique X-shaped mechanical streamlined design, which is inspired by the launch pad of an alien spacecraft and incorporate the X element representing the mysterious symbol into it. After thousands of polishings, makes it the luster and contours of a spaceship. All right, well, I guess that's important for some people. Cool RGB streamer lighting effects jumping and flowing throughout the whole process. So I will say the RGB is a bit bright, but other than that, it's pretty cool, and there's no way to change it or turn it off. Package includes the 1 terabyte external solid-state drive, the cable, a user manual, lifetime customer service, 30-day 100% return and refund if there's any problems with the SSD. Okay, so that's the gist of it. It's brand new. We've got 4 ratings here. And again, you're not going to be too impressed with it if you're not plugging it into a 3.2 Gen 2 with regards to seeing the 2000 megabytes per second. If you're impressed with 1000 megabytes per second, well, then probably the machine you have now can achieve that if you've got something built within the last 3 or 4 years. Let me go back over to camera 1 now, and we'll unbox this and show you what's in here. I see some super chat contributions, so let me acknowledge all of this here. Ben Laird with a £2 contribution, joining us from Scotland. Thank you, Ben. Planet Cryos with $2 in super chat says, "Hey you, it's me saying hi to you. Hope all is well." Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Planet Cryos. Shop Persian Rugs contributed $2 and said, "Here's my admission fee." Good afternoon, Gary. Well, thank you, Shop Persian Rugs. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll back here. Chris Johnson renewed membership, now a member for 19 months. Right on. Thank you, Chris. He says, "Hello, Carey, Marlena, and all my friends in chat." I see Mortant joining us, and Luke Greenia, and my friend Ron Hillier in there. Let's see who else. Garfield Rupe, Mark Gaines joining us from Northern Ireland. There's Essential Working Too Hard. Andy Woodridge says hello from the Netherlands. Martin Hogg joining us from Scotland. Jason Willis and Dwayne Blackwelder saying hello. I've got to say, so late at night when I'm trying to turn my brain off and go to bed, I like to what we call squirrel. I like to squirrel on YouTube, meaning I like to just kind of search around and see what hidden gems are out there on YouTube. And there are a ton, and I didn't realize this is, I'm sure most of you were well aware of this, but I've been under my rock for a while. Throughout the world, there are winter markets or Christmas markets where they take a downtown area and they set up temporarily like an ice skating rink and a bunch of little shops that are typically portable, sort of pop up. And they're there for a few weeks, maybe from the beginning or so of December through mid-January. And so I know they do this in Phoenix, but what I wasn't aware of is how popular this is in Europe. So Stuttgart and Frankfurt and all throughout Germany, this is like a big deal. And they have these Christmas markets or winter markets. And then, of course, they've got them in all these European countries. So if you're looking for something to do and you want to travel virtually, like I couldn't do this back in the 80s, but you can do it now. It's like being there without actually having to go. And of course, a lot of these places, there's an Oslo in Norway. There's a Christmas market or a winter market, and everybody looks like they're freezing. Like everybody's bundled up, and they're outdoors, just walking for a couple of miles out. It's all outdoors, looking at all the vendors, and you get your mulled wine and hot chocolate or hot coffee. Keeps you warm and you keep moving. And some people are like wrapped in blankets. And being in Phoenix, that's very amusing to me because it never gets anywhere near that cold here. And if it did, we'd be out in it as briefly as possible. To think these people are going to be out in this for hours, voluntarily for fun. As you can imagine, I'm drawn to that. I'm like, oh, isn't that fascinating? And of course, England is really big, like the Borough Market. The thing's amazing. If you check that out, it's really a lot of these I'd love to see in person. However, not this year, but at least with the technology that's in phone cameras, people now are posting more than ever before, just regular folks who aren't necessarily camera enthusiasts, sharing the experience where they turn the camera on and walk the entire market, never editing, never shutting it off. One long continuous take. They usually set up Ferris wheels temporarily, like I say, ice skating rinks. The German ones look the most interesting to me with the bratwurst that they're selling and the German pretzels, which look amazing. And I think there's also a big one in Edinburgh and probably in Dublin. So it's endless if you start looking at these markets. And you just start thinking of the countries. They almost all have them. And in many cases, they have multiple, like Germany's got 4 or 5 going on. So, well, a little bit of them are identical. Right? You start seeing some of the same. The culture from one country to another and the things that they're selling, and fascinating. The one in Norway looks absolutely astonishing. And what I was surprised about is that whole Christmas market in Norway, everything is in English. So I was like, is this Oslo? Because I didn't really see anything in Norwegian for the first few minutes of the video. And then eventually they get to a part where they've got, Kerflurgen, and you're like, okay, that's. So I was thinking of our friend Oystein there. He's probably in his backyard. He could go there anytime he wants. Me, I'd have to get a passport, jump on a plane for 15 hours or however long it is. Anyway, that's just a fun little something to do later, especially maybe on Christmas Day, if you're looking for something to do. Check out those Christmas markets. They're astonishing. And you don't have to brave the cold. It's also a lot cheaper. Alan Lindos contributes $15.54 in Super Chat. Hello, Carey, Marlena, and chat. It's the time for giving, so here's my late fee, ×2. Happy holidays, all. Alan always gives us $7.77. It's those lucky sevens. So he's doubled it for the holidays. Thank you, Alan. Paul O'Brien with a €2 contribution. Has just got back from community service doing my bit. Community service, was that punishment? Be good. Hey, there's our pal, Mitch Morrison. He says, hello. Welcome in, Mitch. Mitch wants to know, why did the broth taste funny? Because it was a laughing stock. But a bum. That was the one I heard the other day. What do you mean, no? I haven't even said it yet. You better hope I can't think of it. I'm gonna come up with it. Just give me a minute. Brain's a little slower as I'm getting older, but I'll get there. It's just like a Google and dial-up up here. Quit saying no. Mike Visions with a 5-pound contribution says, hello, Carey, Marlena, and all in chat. Caught a stream at last. Been very busy lately. Hey, busy is good, Mike. Thank you for your super chat contribution. Martin Hogg with a 4.99 contribution says, hello, Carey and chat. Here's a wee something. It's been a while. Have I missed the non-booting HP solution? No, I have not gotten back to that yet. I have been focused getting equipment sold and out of here because it's getting out of control. Once I reach a certain limit, I can't really express to you what it is. It's not like I just feel it. Once I start to feel overwhelmed with equipment, I make it my mission to get some of the equipment sold and out of here. And so that's what I've been doing, with the goal being to have a nice clean slate for January 1st for the new year, and to get rid of all of the older generation of chips I've got, from 10th gen and earlier, get them out of here, give somebody a good deal just so I can get it out. I found a local guy who refurbishes and sells computers, and ideally him and I are going to become fast friends because he's very interested in buying all the old equipment. He just can't afford to buy it all at once. So as he sells it, he'll come back and, well, hopefully he'll come back and want more. Once all the old equipment is gone, so I don't have anything older than 11th gen here, then I can relax a little bit and, of course, start on more new projects that can start to pile up, and around the wheel will go. But yeah. All right, so in this box, kind of a cool box here. Bring this up to the camera and show you. Got the centers got foil, so it has a prism effect in the light, or a rainbow effect. And then inside, we open this up, we've got one cable and our drive, and that is all metal. Every single external solid state drive I've ever seen has always been made of plastic, unless it's an enclosure that you build yourself. This thing is, well, give it a listen. It's heavy. In the box, we've got a little user guide here in multiple languages, of course. There's really, I think there's much to be explained other than your warranty and, plug it in and use it should be the instructions. And then the little Velcro tie is actually attached to the cable, which is a nice little touch. It's a short USB to USB-C. And then if I bring this up, I'll show you where the RGB is gonna shine through is on the X, and then on each side, there's a little indentation with a little window that will shine the same color through. And they do sell a 2 terabyte version of this. Oh, I see. They're calling it the Ray X20 instead of the X-Ray. Okay. I'm getting it. I see what they did. So we're going to take our USB-C cable. Doesn't matter which end you plug in. And what's nice about USB-C is you can plug it in either way. You don't have to fuss with, the way you would with USB Type A, which only goes in one of 2 ways, but seemingly always takes 3 attempts. Not quite sure how that works. Let's get this plugged in and turned on. Now, this is my 13500 build. I'm a big fan of the 13500 chip. I think it's a great value right now on the market for what's available. I think it can't be beat. And the ASRock Live mixer board, many of the ASRock boards have a built-in DisplayPort connector on the inside. It's a ribbon connector, not a typical DisplayPort connector, but it is internally, it's a DisplayPort, and you run that ribbon cable to this monitor that ASRock sells that's intended to attach to the side. Now, of course, you can attach it vertically, horizontally. when I ordered this case, I didn't know the glass would be clear. This would look a lot better if it were smoked. So we made two of these. We made a version in the black case and a version in the white case. I personally think the black case looks better because you don't even see the monitor until it lights up. So right now I've configured the monitor to just duplicate the main screen, but you could set this up to be like an RGB thing for monitor too. We could have like electric sheep is what it's called, with the different graphical mosaics and fractals running through here, to have just the coolest RGB if that's important to you. Let's see, so I've given it power. Let's turn that on. Okay, I got the keyboard and mouse plugged in there. I need to plug in video. And we use onboard video on here. That's why you don't see a video card. And we'll plug in the internet. Turn this on, and we should see all the USB light up, and you'll see the screen appear here. Now, of course, at the same time, it's outputting that video signal to our capture card. So I can turn that on right now. See that? Okay, so we'll come back to that in just a minute. Let's take this. And again, the only USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 port is this one up here. And I'm glad to have it because, like I said, it's pretty rare to find on boards. As soon as we plug it in, we'll know if it's plugged in correctly, if it lights up. I have not tested it on here yet, so this is all pure theory at this point. If it's not lighting up, then that means probably the internal connector isn't seated all the way down. On these ASRock boards, I've found that some of these connectors can be very tight. And I think I'm going to have to take the side panel off and just check that real quick. These videos are all live and unscripted, as you can tell. And that should instantly light up if I had a proper connection. So I'm going to guess my connection's not seated. Probably something I could have checked before going live, but I like my videos to have these surprises. And I like my videos to represent what you're likely going to experience. If I'm not seating my cables fully, that's obviously not just me doing that. I want you to know, when you experience these kind of problems, especially if you've built your own computer, before you freak out and think you've got a bad unit, make sure all the cables are seated properly. It's usually the easy problems that solve most, easy solutions that solve most computer problems, at least that I get calls for from customers. Thank you to Shop Persian Rugs with another $2 super chat, who says, I love the mouse pad I got from you, thanks. Oh, right on. Yeah, we have some merch, very limited merch, over at CareyHolzman.com. Take you over there real quick and show you. I haven't talked about this in a while. This is something my sister runs. She creates the merch. She handles any sale of the merch and any shipping of the merchandise. So you can go to CareyHolzman.com, shop CareyHolzman.com, CareyHolzmanShop.com. Any of that will take you right here. And if you're wondering what this little cartoon is, I've always mentioned that the internet is like a dumpster filled with, obviously, trash and garbage, but somewhere within all that trash and garbage are little gems, little diamonds. And you've got to search through all the trash, but it's worth it to get the diamond. So that's me poking my head out of a dumpster holding a diamond. That represents the good stuff on the internet. The rest of it is the rest of the internet. But if we scroll down, you'll see we've got some Zippo lighters here. These are each etched essentially by hand, but the engraving is done with a machine, but the design is done by hand. We've got case badges. We've got the mouse pads. We've got these cardboard coasters, which are pretty nice. and they're available in black and white. And a pop socket for your phone. And these are just little stickers which fit perfectly on your CPU fan spindle right in the middle of the size. And this also is, there's always stuff she's coming up with throughout the year when she gets a creative bug. And so check back to the site, at least once a month and look for the new stuff that she's put up. Like these lighters are going to be very limited edition. Right now she says out of stock. Oh, I thought she had a few in stock. And each one is different. And it's a Zippo lighter, so it'll last for a long time. It's got my signature on it. All right, so enough of that self-promotion. Let me get back over to camera 1 here. Let me shut this down, and actually, I don't know if I have to shut it down. And it's good practice to be safe, but when have I ever started to be safe? I can see the USB 3.2 cable right there. And it is plugged in, but it may not be plugged in all the way. Now, I think the side panel doesn't have any screws holding it in. I think I just pull on it. And I've got to be careful because that screen has a ribbon cable on it that's plugged in over here. That's our proprietary connector for DisplayPort. And this cable right here, yeah, that was definitely not plugged in. I did this on my last build. So I guess when I'm plugging in, and let this be a lesson to you as well. When we're going to plug in these cables, especially when they don't have clips to verify when they're in, this is just a friction fit into this rectangular slot. And give it a little bit of force, and I heard it click that time. So I feel very confident that I have fixed that. And once again, something like that could be a support call. And as you can imagine, if I'm shipping the computer thousands of miles away, diagnosing that and explaining it to somebody over the phone or through email can be a little challenging depending on who you're talking to, and may not even be the solution. But to have it in front of me, it's a 10-second fix or 20-second fix. So now when I plug this in, ideally, it'll start to light up immediately. There we go. And you'll see the lights along the sides. Again, no control over that. There's no turning it off, or there's no dimming it. There's no setting a permanent color. But it is verification that it is plugged in. So now that it's plugged in, we can go back over to our desktop here. Here we go. And you'll see it opened a folder here, which has on there. Oh, Crystal Dismark left. This is a folder that Crystal Dismark left when I was testing it. So let's delete that folder. Crystal Dismark usually does a good job of cleaning up after itself. You don't normally see that. And then let me plug my flash drive in and copy the Crystal Dismark software over onto this desktop of this machine. Remember, there's no rehearsal here. Nothing was prepped beforehand. So off of my USB flash drive that I normally use, drag that out to the desktop. Unplug it because I don't need that flash drive anymore now that I have the Crystal Dismark software there. Okay, are you ready for this? We're going to choose the D drive, right? Shows it's 931 gigs, that's a terabyte. And we'll hit the all button. You watch up here at the top of the window, it tells you what it's doing, sequential read 1 of 5. Here we should see 2000. Yes! 2032. That is so awesome. Now, it's one thing to see, oh, Carey, you can get 12,000 out of an internal Gen 5 NVMe. You can, but that's internal, and that's requiring a Gen 5 compatible motherboard. Granted, a lot of motherboards that have Gen 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 may in fact be Gen 5 compatible, but not necessarily. So at least this way, when it comes to an external drive, that is incredibly quick. And those of you who've been watching me for a while know that I've been pursuing a machine that has this ability because I've had a Gen 2 by 2 drive for nearly, it's got to be close to a year. Let me put myself in a corner here. Bear with me as I bring back camera 1 and put myself in a corner so we can watch both happen at the same time. And while that's going on, let me see what you guys are seeing in the chat room. PC Fishing, now a member for 19 months, says, hello, Carey in chat. My message did not show up earlier. Did it time me out? I have no idea what you're talking about. But your message is there, and thank you for renewing your membership. 19 months, that's awesome. And Mortant has posted a link to the CareyHolzman shop, in case you guys want to check that out. Shipping and taxes all included in anything you purchase, and everything ships worldwide. So no concern about, will you ship to me? Yes, we will. 3D Everything, also a member for 19 months now, says I'm a little late to this live broadcast, but I made it. We've been waiting for you. Thank you, 3D Everything, for renewing your membership. Roy Starman, mentioning those Christmas markets, says just about every big city in Germany has a Christmas market. In Berlin, the different neighborhoods have them. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you go on YouTube and just search the Christmas market or winter market, just as a generic search, you'll see them from all over the world. And in most cases, at least the ones I'm looking at, the video quality is amazing. A lot of times when we have these drives that do really fast read speeds, they suffer with write speeds that could be as much as 50% slower with a write speed of an SSD. It's not uncommon for it to be 1/3 slower. But if you notice on this drive, it's maybe 10% slower on the writes than it is on the reads, and that's really impressive. When I run H2TestW, which is a free piece of software, speaking of Germany, it's from Germany. It's a little piece of software that's portable, so you don't have to install it, and it will write across the entire drive to verify whether or not it's fake. Like so many drives that claim to be a certain size turn out to be much smaller. You're not going to deal with that from any name brand unless you're buying from a questionable source, some eBay or Etsy or AliExpress, or especially Temu sell these. Amazon also sells them, not on purpose, but these sellers sneak in, and you've got to be a smart consumer. Make sure you're buying a name brand. Just so you know, MovesSpeed is a name brand. You can also find MovesSpeed available for sale at walmart.com. Planet Cryos with a $5 super chat says, Carey, one way you can make it hit 3,000 megabytes per second is to put a Go Faster sticker on it. I promise. Paint flames on the side. Anybody notice I had the Coca-Cola today? Did anybody notice it at all? Jason, H88, now a member for 19 months, says that speed is amazing. Thank you, Carey, for showing us all this new technology. It's been hard for me to demonstrate the SanDisk. As I mentioned, I've tried with machines to see if they have USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2. And I think so far this year, we've seen 2 machines that have accomplished that, but I don't know which ones they are. I can't remember. So at least I know now. On the Z790 chipset, if you have such a chipset, that should have USB 3.2 Gen2 by 2 on it, but it may be only on the front connector. So your case has to have that Type-C connector. Other than that, I don't know if this standard is going to be any more popular, With USB 4 now out, it may be left behind, but they're still coming out, manufacturers are still coming out with 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 drives. So what's confusing is the Gen 2 by 2 is supposed to move the data at 20 gigabits per second. USB 4 is supposed to move the data at up to 40 gigabits per second. But I don't see any USB 4 drives. And once again, you'd think if it was USB 4, it would be backwards compatible. But no, if you plug this into USB 4, it's only going to move the data at 1,000, the same as USB 3. So where I'm going with this is, if you think this is something, imagine if this were USB 4 and took advantage of all 40 gigabits per second. In theory, we could double this again, and we could hit 4,000 megabytes. Not to take the wind out of the sails of how impressive this is, because as far as I know, this is the fastest. USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 is the fastest external storage outside of Thunderbolt. If you want to buy Thunderbolt, it's going to cost you a lot more money, again, because of the royalties and licensing that Intel requires. And it is backwards compatible with USB now, but it used to not be. And it uses, Thunderbolt now uses the same USB Type-C connector for that compatibility. USB and Thunderbolt have always been competing against one another, with Thunderbolt usually going first, then USB following up months or a year later or so with an equivalent or better speed, usually equivalent, without the licensing fees. And then that means manufacturers also have to pay licensing fees for Thunderbolt. So they're less likely to want to pay those fees. They want to charge fees. They don't want to pay them. So that's why USB is so much more popular, is the fees are like nothing compared to Thunderbolt. They're very minimal. So USB is the thing most manufacturers want to grab onto, because it's less complicated to make the devices and get all the permissions that are required. Also, for universal compatibility, instead of people that only have Thunderbolt being able to buy your device, now anybody with USB can buy the device, even if it is Thunderbolt. So that being said, if you wanted to back up your computer and you have a lot to back up, it can be quite discouraging because it can take a long time. But if you can double your speed to an external drive, and assuming the external drive is got a large enough capacity to hold your entire C drive, you could grab something like a Cronus and back up your drive in really no time at all, maybe less than an hour in most cases. One of the reasons people don't back up is the amount of time it takes. And it's also a reason why they don't update their backups often enough. Oh, I backed up my computer back in April. Yeah, a lot of good that's going to do you now in December. Backups essentially are perishable. It's like, I'll have that banana next month. I don't think you're going to want it next month. It's going to turn brown and mushy and gross. And much the same way, you probably added a lot of data or made a lot of changes to existing files on your computer since April. But maybe you've been reluctant to back that system up again because it's discouraging how long it takes. Stuff like this is great because you're not paying any cloud fees. You buy it once, you own it for life. You're in control of the security of it. You don't have to worry about anybody in another country hacking the cloud and stealing your data. They'd have to break into your house. Unfortunately, if they do break into your house and steal this, you lose your backup. Or if your house suffers a fire or a catastrophe, a flood, it's a good idea to have a second or a third backup that you would store in another building somewhere. That's where the cloud is handy, because it's literally in another building. Quite often, a building you don't know anything about, where it's located, you have no control over it. So if you're like me and you're like a control freak and you're willing to take responsibility for the security of your own data rather than wanting that off and trusting a corporate entity to secure your data for you, this is a cheaper, faster, more convenient way to go. But it's not enough to just have one of them. One backup is not enough. You need multiple backups, because sometimes backups fail. And if the backup fails, hopefully the source, which is the PC, will still be working so you can make another backup. However, if the source, If you just copied your files to the backup drive, that's not a backup. You need to have multiple copies. I misspoke. If you move your files, you say, okay, these are all my pictures. Carey said to back them up. You buy a backup drive and then you move your pictures to the backup drive. That's not a backup. You need the pictures or those critical files duplicated, not just moved. If I have one mouse and I break this mouse, I have no more mouse. And it doesn't matter how robust or unbreakable the mouse is. It can still break or be stolen or get lost. So I have a spare mouse, right? Just like you have a spare tire. A spare tire is not one of the 4 tires you're on right now, I hope. And if it is, I hope you're not considering that permanent, but as a temporary solution. Backups are nothing more than copies of important files. They're not the originals. They're not the only copy. That's where I think people get confused. There's nothing magical about a backup drive that makes the data safer than on your internal hard drive. It can fail the same way. It's the same drive. It's just external instead of internal. So the idea is that if you have something important, make copies of it. With photos back in the day when we used to use film, we'd keep the negatives. Well, most of us did. That way, in case we ever wanted to reprint photos, if the photos faded over time or got lost or damaged, you could reprint the photo again. Some people would print out multiple photos and give them to friends and family, etc. Especially things like graduation pictures, high school or school photos. You know, you don't just get one photo, you get a bunch of them in different sizes. Those are kind of like backups. You don't just get one. So it's important that you duplicate important files and put it on the drive. Here's the thing. Go back to full screen over here. When people fail to do this correctly, and they move their files instead of copying them, but they physically take the files and move them off of the computer and onto the backup drive, and they go, there, I backed them up. You didn't. That's worse. That is worse. Then the backup drive fails. You have no copy to fall back on anymore because you've taken it off of the PC. So then what do? You have to use file recovery. A lot of times file recovery software only works if you've accidentally deleted the files. If there's something corrupt or physically wrong with the drive, there's no backup software that's going to likely be able to help you. So then you got to go to a data recovery service. A data recovery service will make an attempt to pull the data off of a damaged or broken drive or corrupt drive at a very high expense. It's done with very expensive specialty equipment. And effectively, they're making your backup that you didn't make. But it's going to cost you a whole lot more money and take a whole lot more time with no guarantee that they can get anything or everything back, depending on what damage has been done. So, if your data is critical and important to you, the cloud is very convenient that you can get it out of the building and get it secured. However, you have no control over it. I'm not worried about a company going out of business because they'll always send you an email and let you know, hey, we're going out of business. You need to move your data by this date or it'll be deleted. We've been through this before. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about somebody breaking into the account, which of course I wouldn't know anything about, unless the service offers an alert to let you know somebody's in the account, which most of the time I think people would disable because that means every time you log into it, it's going to alert you. If there is two-factor authentication, I would certainly enable it for better security. But the fear is that somebody could break in because, let's say, Google Drive didn't update their security or did it wrong. Now a hacker in Russia has broken into it, stolen a bunch of people's data. They didn't necessarily come after me specifically, but my data was there. They grabbed it. Now it's gone. Once the data's been taken, there's no getting it back. It's gone forever. Now, they may not erase it or damage it, but they've got a copy of it themselves. And they could, they're nasty, they could encrypt all your data. That's called ransomware. and then give you a limited amount of time to pay them an excessive amount of money to get the decryption key. If you have your own on-site backup, you can say, no, thank you. Just ignore that and let them encrypt it. And then you can start over from your backup that's not encrypted. That's also another reason you don't want to leave a backup drive hooked up 24/7. Not only is there no cooling fan in most of these backup drives, if you were to get a virus, or say there was a power spike that came in, it could damage the drive, or the virus will infect the drive. So you plug your drive in, you make your backup, and you unplug your drive. And what I would advise is you get at least 2 of these, minimum of 2 backup drives, and rotate them. So 1 week, or however often you're backing up, you back up to one drive, and the next week you back up to the other. Keep cycling them. And then I'll tell you what happens is people accidentally delete something and they don't realize they've deleted it for a period of time. And by then they've already updated the backups, and the backup says, oh, you deleted that file, I'll delete it off the backup too. That's where you go, oh, let me go to the backup before that one, that should still have the file. Now, clearly, if you wait too long before you realize you've deleted the file, and even your backup before that isn't going to have it either. And that's where we have to justify how many backups you want, how much time you want to invest in making those backups. And then, you could have a backup for every single day of the week. You could buy 365 of these. But then you'd have to label them all, find a place to store them. And then if you've deleted a file and you're not sure when you deleted it and you want to go back through the history of backups, you could go through every drive until you find it. It would take a long time. Now, there is something called versioning, where versioning could keep a copy of deleted files. The problem with versioning is that it can take up an immense amount of space. You could have a drive that has 200 gigs of data. And every time you change a file, it saves the change and it doesn't delete the version before. And you can keep like a certain number of versions. 5 or 6 is pretty normal. But I've seen people saving 30 versions of a file, which takes up 30 times more hard drive space. Well, at least it will if you keep changing the file and it keeps saving a different version. So 5 or 6 is pretty typical. I'd even say even 3, because even at 3, you are potentially tripling the amount of storage space you're going to need. Even though you only have 200 gigs of data, now you have 600 gigs because of all of the changes that are being saved. So as you can see, when you turn on versioning, even that's not a simple solution, because now you're going to need a larger backup drive, or you're going to run out of space sooner. But these are all different options for you to consider on how to protect your data, depending on how important that data is to you. Another great way to back up your data is to simply upload it to the internet and let the internet copy it. The problem with that is there's no privacy. So if you have some generic photos or whatever, and you upload them just to like Google Photos or something, people will steal your photos and use them in advertisements. They'll use them to scam people. They'll take your, like if you have a picture of yourself online, they'll steal your Facebook profile, make up a name, create a new Facebook profile, and use that in like a dating scam. And you won't even know it's happening until somebody is wise enough to say, hey, this person that's, like if it's a dating scam, you can, in Google Chrome, you can right click on the image and say Google image search and see if it pulls up that same image anywhere else. So that's quite often a very simple way to determine if you're dealing with an impersonator or the real person. And it's usually pretty easy to tell simply by looking at, hey, this Facebook account was created this year, and this other image matches exactly that Facebook account, also on Facebook, and that account was made 4 or 5 years ago. Clearly, the older account is the victim. But if you don't take that effort to do that sleuthing, then you're also going to be. So just be aware that that happens. And so by securing your data, especially your photos and things, you're less likely to become a victim of having somebody steal your photos. Some people will watermark their photos that they upload to like Google Photos or Google Reviews. I've got a number of photos that I've uploaded from restaurants that I go to. And I know people are stealing those photos and using them. I don't know where they're using them, but there's no way my photos got 100,000 views in 3 months. That's Google's reporting, hey, look how popular your photo is. It's like a picture of inside of a bar. Why? So clearly scammers are using that for something, and I don't know what, and there's nothing I can do about it. But I don't care. I'm not selling the photo, so if somebody uses it, they use it. But if it's personal and private, then I absolutely want to keep that off the cloud and onto my own storage. And if it's important to me, I want to make copies of it. So if anything happens to the source or where the source is being saved, like on an internal drive, if that internal drive fails or is stolen, if there's a virus that infects it, I don't want to have to play games with the ransomware people. I can just simply go back to my original, to my copy rather, and restore from a backup. So that being said, we will talk more about backups throughout the rest of this month because I want to emphasize how important this is. And I am currently in discussions with Acronis to get you guys a discount so that we're going to make it affordable, make it easy, show you how to use it, go through some of the new features of Acronis as we normally do. Hopefully we'll bring back Begowden, our good friend Begowden from Acronis, to talk about that. And that will pair nicely with an external drive like this. And by going at 2,000 megabytes per second, take half the amount of time. And it's all very affordable. So all the excuses for not doing it. The only excuse acceptable for not doing it now is, I don't care if I lose the data. All right. Then why do you have it if you don't care about it? See, to me, that's hypocritical for somebody to say, well, if I lose the data, so what? Okay, then why do you even have it? Why don't you just delete it now if it's not important to you? That's what I have to say about that. Douglas wants to know, was it $80? Oh, he's talking to Essential Working Too Hard. We do have the coupon code. The coupon code, Essential Working Too Hard said he just ordered the MovesSpeed 1 terabyte for $80.83. It's $130, but with $50 off, it becomes $80. Plus, he got an extra 10% with the coupon code. And that should have taken it down to what, $72? Well, wait a minute. Is it 139 or 129? 130. I think that's what it was. And then $50 off of that would make it 89. Oh, it'll be so okay. So say that again. Wait, come in here and say it because I don't want to repeat it.
So the drive of today is 139.
Come over here, closer to the mic.
The drive is 139 off of Amazon, minus $50 via Amazon, and then with the additional 10%, it brings it down to about $79.
$79 for a terabyte of 2,000 megabyte per second storage, and all metal, all metal. So there's a $50 coupon. When you go to the Amazon page, you have to check the box. I still have the Amazon page up. Do we have an Amazon page for the 2 terabyte version? Not available yet? Okay. So if I go back over to the window capture here, $139.99, right? You see that? Then there's this coupon code right here. You got to check this box to apply the $50 coupon. And that's going to take this down from 139 to 89, right? Because that, yeah, that'll be $50 off. And then you add the coupon code that we have in our video notes. That'll save you 10% more off of the 89, which is about $8.90.
Correct.
And that's going to take it then to about $79.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
the
how
2 terabyte is only available off.
Oh, you know, I didn't even go to their website. Do we have a link to their website in the video?
I didn't
notes?
include it on purpose.
Yeah, let's check that out. Camera. See if I can. She's doing it at the same time. Let's see if we can. MoveSpeed. Movespeed.com. That's pretty straightforward. And, oh, look at that. That's a great looking website. Of course, we've showcased their NVMe drives, which so far have been running really well for me. We've got the 1 terabyte and the 2 terabyte. Go to products. What is a UFlash disk? Oh, that's the flash drive that we've already reviewed this as well, which also has a Type-C port on one end, and that's great for backing up your phone. SSD NVMe. Here we go. So they've got 2.5-inch drives, they've got the NVMe, and now they've got the portable drive. Now see, it's a bit more money here on the website, $179 for 1 terabyte. And then there's the 2 terabyte version, which is going to look exactly the same on the outside, just going to have double the capacity. We should reach out to them and get them to send us the 2 terabyte one. Not that it's really going to make a different review. I just want it. And it's TLC NAND memory. Yeah, I don't know that the 2 terabytes available because when I click it, oh yeah, it jumps up $100. I see. Video notes have the movespeed.com link now. Thank you, Mara. Yeah, so this has my seal of approval. I like it. It's unique, it's different. If I had a complaint, it's that the RGB is a bit bright, but I do like the confirmation that it's plugged in and active. I don't like the flash drives that are being sold today that have no LED indicator whatsoever. Now, the RGB light does not indicate any reading or writing activity. It only indicates that it's plugged in and active. So by active, I mean it's going to be listed in your Windows Explorer. So whether or not it's reading or writing, you want to be careful when you unplug this drive that you don't unplug it while it's in a read or a write cycle, because you can corrupt the data and damage the drive. And that's why it's so important, in my opinion, to have an LED that flashes whenever there's a read or a write happening. Although it's not rocket science to simply look at the computer and see if a data transfer is in process, or if you've left, say you've got Microsoft Word open and you've written up a document and for some reason you're saving it to your external drive rather than saving it locally. And there's reasons for that. Maybe you're on a friend's computer, or you don't want to leave it on the computer you're working on because it's not your computer. You're going to see the, you know what? We don't see those colors very well. Let's turn the lights out. So you want to make sure you exit out of any program that you might have saved data to on this before you unplug it. And you'll see we've got the colors along the sides, but it is very, very bright. Chapa says, Carey, you have mail. Starshine says only 371 days until Christmas 2024. Let me step out of the way. She wants to get a picture of that for something.
That's really cool. It looks good on that camera.
I probably shouldn't have it hanging there like that, but,
yeah, but
that's for the camera. With a flat top on this case, I could just set that.
That's pretty.
Price is right, I'll tell you. Let's check email. Oh, I missed a couple of things. Kelly Stewart sends an Amazon gift card for $25. Thank you, Kelly, as always. $6.43 from Stuart Johnson. He says, anything you like. Right on. Well, thank you, Stuart. And that catches us up. Yeah, thanks, guys. Again, we are going to be pursuing some limited partnerships with companies that I use in my business, that I use personally. The first two will be Instant House Call for remote access. We're going to talk more about Instant House Call and why you should be using it if you need remote access. It's very affordable and very flexible. Talk more about that this year, January 1st. We'll start that. And then with Acronis, we're going to try and we're really working all day yesterday. We were back and forth in email trying to work out and negotiate bringing you guys a discount. In the past, we've done 30-day campaigns. And what ends up happening is somebody watches the video, 2 or 3 months or even 2 or 3 days after the campaign ends. And they want to take advantage of the deal, but the deal's over. So we want to do something with them where the deal is ideally all year long. So anybody who watches the video at any time throughout 2024 will be able to take advantage of that. And I want to start that before the end of this year. So as you can imagine, being last minute, there's a lot of back and forth, little details that have to be covered. But I am working on that. Mara's working on that more specifically, taking that burden away from me because it's, as the channel's growing, it's becoming a lot for one person to do. As a result, if you email me, if you go to the About section here on the YouTube channel, you'll notice we have a new email address at createshowcase@gmail.com. And if you email that, it'll likely be Mara who responds to you. We do our best to respond to everybody unless, some emails, there's no response possible, depending on, sometimes people don't have their emails set up correctly and their email address is completely messed up. And we can't respond to you when that happens. We have no way to tell you. But we do our best to respond to everybody. So if you want to put her to work, you can send an email. Matt Solov joining us from Sweden sends 100 Swedish kroner and says, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone, to all out there and chat. See you next time. Well, thank you, Matt Solov, and thanks for all of your support this year, of course. Jim KJ3N wants to know, does this drive look like it can be taken apart? In most cases, the answer is going to be no. However, what you got to keep in mind is like some drives actually encrypt the data on the controller, like Western Digital will do that with some of their external drives, which can make data recovery very complicated. When it comes to opening this drive up, I hadn't really thought about it because I'm so happy with it. I'd hate to break it. Let me take a quick look here. If we go back to, let's go back to the main machine. Let's close this. Back to the drive here. Then I can unplug it safely. And as far as taking it apart, there are 4 screws here, but I think in opening it, you could damage it. And these look like a very tiny, like a T5, really tiny Torx bit. They could be very easily stripped out. I've got to guess that there's not, I'm guessing that there's not going to be a standard NVMe drive because as you can see here, there's no way that's going to fit inside. So they could have maybe a 2242 or a 2260 in there, or they could have their own. It's not made to be opened. So if you open it, you're on your own. And Jim, if you decide to do that, I like this too much to risk damaging it. But if you decide to order one, and I hope you'd make a video if you open it, and then I can learn vicariously through you. And then you can let us know if it can be upgraded that way. I wouldn't do it. They're cheap enough. You know what I mean? The price of this in the enclosure is less than the cost of a lot of 1 terabyte NVMe drives on the market. So for the same price as basically a 1 terabyte NVMe bare drive is going to cost you, you get the enclosure and the cable. And as I mentioned, these cables can be quite expensive. So to try and even make that a sweeter deal by buying it and then opening it and switching the drive out, likely it'll be cheaper for you to simply buy the larger, 2 terabyte size. But that's just my assumption. I could be wrong. When it comes to dealing with backup drives, it's not something I would play around with if your backups are important to you. Because you don't know what the long-term reliability or heat ranges, could be exceeded depending on which drive you put in there that maybe doesn't perform well in an enclosure. So that's why I say if you want to make a video and show us that, I'd certainly be one to watch it. But a fair question. But it is not intended to be taken apart, just so we're clear. Essential Working Too Hard said the total before tax, when he ordered this on Amazon, it was a $14 coupon code, right? That's the 10% off. And the $50 savings. Oh, that's nice. So it took the coupon code from $140. So instead of $7 off, it's $14 off. Then take the $50 off after the coupon code. That brings the total to $75.99. And for him, his tax is a little under $5. So his total is just shy of $80. Some people don't have sales tax. So that is a really good price. Again, I don't know how long the $50 coupon code will be available on Amazon, but our discount code with the 10% off will be good through the end of January. David Graham said it's a square PCB, not a regular drive. Yeah, I think they show the exploded view of it on the website, don't they? Chapa said, Carey, I'm sorry, the money from Stuart is actually me. I should have cleared up the difference in my PayPal account in my chat. No problem, Chapa. Thank you for clarifying that. Don't know why Chapa is not blue in the chat room. We got to fix that. Where did he go? There he is. Thank you, Choppa. Get to the chopper. Michael Dane wants to know what's the best CPU fan for a 14700K. I have not installed a 14700K, so I don't know what its TDP is off the top of my head. Does anybody in the chat room have any recommendations for the man, Michael Dane? Probably an all-in-one cooler, I'm going to guess. Jim KJ3N says he's got an Arico 20 gig per second external enclosure, so I can change the NVMe at will. Yes, you can buy external enclosures that you can put your own NVMe drive in. However, a lot of times these enclosures, depending on the drive you buy, they perform well for the first couple hundred megabytes. And then like when you run a program like H2TestW that writes across the entire drive just to test it, we've seen here on the channel where drives can get so hot that the data transfer speed drops to slower than an old IDE hard drive. And that's, I think the title of the video is something along the lines, when slower is faster. Meaning that if we took an IDE hard drive of the similar capacity, it would start off writing slow, but it would never slow down. Whereas when we take some of these cheaper NVMe enclosures, they start writing fast, but as you continue to write, they get slower and slower and slower until eventually they get to be a fraction of the speed of the hard drive. So it's a tortoise and hare type situation where then, and again, this is covering a large data transfer where the hard drive then, well, it started off behind, quickly catches up and finishes first, and oftentimes finishes first by hours. We've seen drives that move 600 megabytes per second slow down to 23 megabytes per second. And a Ricoh, they're one of the cheapest brands you can buy for this, and are, in my experience, one that repeatedly goes through the same process over and over again, where when we're copying small amounts of data to them, they're fast. But when we're copying a large amount of data, and an example I'll give you is I have an Ricoh external drive that I reviewed here maybe 2 years ago. And I took it with me to a customer's location. Customer was buying a new computer and they wanted the data off the old computer moved to the new. So I plugged the Ricoh drive in and I set to copy the user folder off of the Windows on that computer. And, he had several gigabytes of data. No, didn't have, he had several gigs because the drive itself, I believe, was a terabyte. And initially it was copying really fast, but then it started to slow down. And I realized, as the time remaining kept climbing up, I said, I'm not going to sit here staring at your screen waiting for this to finish. Let's just let it run. You call me when it's done. And so obviously it finished that evening, several hours later. And we didn't even fill the drive up, right? We're just copying what data the customer has. And then, of course, copying the data back, I think on the reads, it's nowhere near, doesn't generate anywhere near the amount of heat on a read. So the read speeds were no problem. Reading the data back was really fast. So it's usually on the right side, writing the data. And you might say, well, I only copy a little bit of data. Well, then you don't need a 1 terabyte drive, right? That defeats the point of having the 1 terabyte drive, in my opinion. Why not just get a smaller drive? That way you can copy the entirety of the smaller drive and not have to deal with this problem. If you're going to buy a large capacity drive, my attitude is get a good one. It's not that big of a savings to buy the cheap one. You might have saved $10 to $20 at most. In fact, I would wonder if you take the cost of your Ricoh drive combined with the cost of the NVMe drive you had to add to it and compare it with the cost of this, I think this is a better deal. But just food for thought. Not everything is equal. A lot of times you get what you pay for. But if it's important to you to have something where you can swap out the drives, bear in mind it might end up costing you more that way. But to each their own, right? If you're okay with that, and have at it. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm simply stating I wouldn't. I was using external drives, if you recall, external NVMe's, but that's before these drives and like the SanDisk Extreme Pro. To me, those are just far better. They're designed for that use, and I find the reliability to be better, and they don't get as hot. However, I do this for a living, and I need to make sure I have good stuff, or it ends up costing me money. It's going to take longer, right? Like in the case of that customer, I couldn't take care of him on the one visit. I had to come back and do a second visit to copy the data back. And it's not like I'm charging the customer for every visit. Otherwise, he'll end up paying me more than he paid for the computer. So I was kind of remorseful that I used that drive. However, what other way do I have to test it? Needless to say, I wasn't in a big hurry to get it back. So you can get a great deal from a Ricoh, but you're just not getting, in my experience, a good quality drive in that sense. Pete Unwin says, Merry Christmas, Carey, and all in the chat. Hey, thank you, Pete. Merry Christmas to you. Michael Dane says, Merry Christmas, Carey. My Christmas gift was my life was saved by God, gave me a second chance. Sure, you give thanks for the true meaning of Christmas. Thank God for our Savior. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously someone was looking over your shoulder there, Michael, and hopefully you won't go through that again anytime soon. And we're glad you're doing well. And we're so happy to see you here in our chat room. Back to your bright-eyed and bushy-tailed self. "3D Everything" says the tortoise and the hare. You never heard of the tortoise and the hare? Am I letting my age show? Because these were stories that were taught to us as kids in the 70s about, well, Chicken Little, that the sky is falling, and Boy Who Cried Wolf, the tortoise and the hare. These are your fables of life lessons, children's stories, consequences of certain actions can bring. Planet Cryos wants me to check my email. Chris Johnson says Aesop. What's Aesop from? Huh? I can't hear you. No. It's part of a sale. It's part of a tale. Which tale is it? Aesop's Fables. All right. David Graham says, I've missed some super chats. Have I? Let's see. David Graham contributed $5. He said, yes, I did notice the Coke. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you, David. Sorry I missed that. Yeah. What are Aesop's Fables? Jason H88, now a member for 19 months. He says, that speed is amazing. Thank you, Carey, for showing us this new technology. Right on. Well, thank you, Jason. And Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat wants.
Aesop is also a manufacturer that does like skin and hair.
Yeah. Well, but manufacturers will name themselves after things like that. All right, let's see. 3D Everything with a $10 contribution. The tortoise and the hare was a reference to slower is faster. Were you telling me that, or were you repeating what I already said? Sometimes the delay in the video can cause some confusion where I'm wondering why people are repeating what I already said, or if they're asking because they're not familiar with the story, which I think is pretty ubiquitous. But yes. Arnold Albert says, Carey, I got an HP Elite Desk from eBay for a colleague after an NVMe upgrade. She's loving it being compact and quick. It's a great recommendation. Absolutely. Yeah, again, when you're used to buying consumer grade equipment, you have no idea just how much better the business grade equipment is until you actually get your hands on it. These mini PCs that are off lease are very inexpensive. They're very easy to upgrade. They have lots of options, little adapters and things you can buy to change out the ports to USB 3 or 10 gigabit Ethernet, all kinds of options depending on the model. When you can put an NVMe drive in them, they're typically DDR4 laptop RAM. They are respectably fast and quiet and tiny. But you have to experience it. Once you experience it, I'm sure you'll agree. Michael Dane says, what's a vegan's favorite Christmas carol? Soy to the world. Peter VZ with a €1 contribution in Super Chat. Thank you, Peter. Okay, over to my email, which I'm trying to get to. Planet Cryos with a $50 Amazon gift card. Hey, thank you, Planet Cryos. He says, I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas from your friend and fellow YouTuber, Planet Cryos. What a great year for 2023. Keep it up in 2024. Well, thank you so much. That's so kind. I will eat up all of your kind words and support. Here on the internet, there's a lot of people that want to put other people down. And so having this community, and such a unique community, in that everybody is so kind, not only to me, but to one another. And that, to me, is the best content that this channel offers, is what's happening in the live chat room. If you watch these videos and you're not watching them live, more importantly, if you're not participating in our community, you are missing out on 50% of what these videos that I'm creating here are offering. Because 50% of these videos are me, and the other 50%, I'd even say 40% is me, and 60% is what's happening in the chat room. The friendships that are made, the help that is offered to one another with regards to solving computer problems, including, the ability that we're able to give away computers. We've given away computers to military veterans here in the US and families in need, and we will continue to do that, of course. And we have members in our chat room, such as the aforementioned Michael Dane, who's given away like 130 computers in his local community. He physically hands them to. Whereas I often don't meet the people that are often recipients of the free giveaways. But those giveaways are only made possible by the community. I'm just the middleman. I'm taking the community's offerings, looking for great deals like on eBay and off-lease machines, so that we can give away, 20 off-lease computers for the same price as giving away one gaming PC. So I'd much rather help 20 people than just one person with a gaming PC, especially when, gaming is an expensive luxury. The computers that we're giving away are more critical, or they're intended to be, for everyday communication, to stay connected. Whatever that means for each individual, to pay bills online, stay in touch with family and friends. I have some folks, here in Arizona, we have a large retirement community. And I've met a few where it's kind of sad, but they don't have a lot going on in their life. And they spend their day playing like solitaire, very common on the computer. And when the computer breaks down, the concern is the quality of life goes down, because without being able to use solitaire, they're just staring at the walls. It's massive, something so simple. It's their entertainment, it's their enjoyment in their, retirement years. And they do that every day for hours on end. They can't get enough of it. And as you can imagine, when I get those phone calls, these folks are like, tears. Can you help me? And oftentimes they're on fixed budgets. They don't have a lot of money. And, it's really touching to see how something, from my perspective, is such a little thing to give, has so much gratitude and appreciation. And that is so rewarding for me. I'm sure for our friend Michael Dane, and for everybody who has given to somebody else and received that gratitude back. I suppose, one of the things I was frustrated with early on, even fairly recently with some of the giveaways, was never hearing from the people ever again. So they ask to receive one. They go through the trouble of asking. And you send them something, and to not even get so much as a thank you or confirmation that they received it kind of breaks my heart, because, again, as a gift, you don't really expect anything in return, but I kind of do. It certainly encourages me to give more when I'm getting back the gratitude, right? And I think that's true for most people. Not that it's a requirement, but it certainly benefits other people, because if I send out a bunch of computers for free, and the vast majority of them never even so much as let me know they received it, I kind of wonder why I bothered. And that can affect other people getting free computers from me. So hopefully, if anybody gifts you anything, I would hope just out of politeness that you say thank you. But when it's heartfelt and sincere, that is so powerful. I tell you, it's better than any sale I could ever make as far as the satisfaction goes. Flipper Flop phrases it quite well here. A sign of appreciation goes a long way. Well, I can't say that for everybody, but it does certainly for me. Richard Palmentier says, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Great year, and 2024 will be an adventure. Bill Garcia says, has anybody seen Rick Lakes? Seems like we saw Rick a couple of days ago, last week. But I guess he's not in there today. Douglas Burchell, you know, we sent Douglas Burchell the AWOW mini PC. And Douglas is continually updating me with how much he enjoys it and how well it's working. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. One great way to continue to receive items, you know, I have a rule. Everybody gets one thing, but there's an exception. And that is if somebody's reporting back, which is effectively like a review, you know, versus the people where you give something away and you hear from them, or you hear from them once, they say thank you, and you never hear from them again. Luke Greenia, Planet Cryos, they received a few things because they constantly report back with updates. That's critical for me because without those updates, I'd have to do it myself, and I have too much going on. So if I send something to somebody and I never hear from them again, I don't want to send them anything else. But if I do hear from people with updates about how things are working, good or bad, as long as they're updates, and they don't have to be all the time, just, you know, infrequently, just by the way, that puts you in a good position for, you know, another giveaway under the assumption that you'll also update to that. So do keep that in mind, because for me, you're essentially doing part of my job by doing the review. And I like reviews to be real. I don't like them to be simulated tests emulating what somebody might do with it. I like somebody to actually live with it and really use it, however that is defined by them, and report back what they like or dislike about the device, as well as how it's performing over time. That is the most valuable review, in my opinion. So by sharing that here in the chat room and with all of you, sort of get these updates on products that I don't have time to go back and do. So I certainly appreciate that. Choppa says, bye, Carey, Marlena DG, and everyone in chat. See you all soon. Stay safe. Michael Dane says, one of the things I'll be doing in 2024 is to help repair vets and people in need, computer repairs, who need it at low or no cost to them. That is fantastic. Douglas says he loves his AWOW mini from the channel. See, the thing about the AWOW was I never heard of them, and I bought that off Amazon to just review these no-name brand mini PCs to see if they're worthwhile. Some have been and some haven't been, but I did like the AWOW personally. We might have to go back and look at some other models that AWOW offers. Steve Mercure said the hot dog build that I sent him continues to run and control his ham radio station like a champ. It's worked perfectly in that task for a while now. And that just goes to show you, when I do the hot dog builds, they're not built to the standard that I would sell a customer. They might work great or they might be unreliable. Only time can tell. And so again, getting that information back is quite useful to me. So I appreciate the updates on that. Michael Dane said the power supply I sent him is still working great. Yeah, well, I certainly expect that because I sent you a good power supply. What was interesting is the first power supply I sent him was from, was it Intermax? And as soon as he got it, it blew up. It almost took out all of his computer equipment. There was some concern that when when it blew up, that it could have resulted in him having to buy all new components, which I would have felt really bad about. So I sent him another. I actually just bought one on Amazon. Just had it sent directly to him. The reason I sent him the other one was for review. And I think I had tested it out and it worked. And then I boxed up and sent it to him. And then he got it opened up, blew up. So I definitely don't want to use that manufacturer anymore. Who was the manufacturer? I don't want to say the wrong name. I thought it was Enermac. Sure. Richard Palmentier says, I appreciated the vet computer I received from Carey, but I've returned to work due to the economy, and I was able to do my own build from what I learned on the channel. See, now that is so satisfying to me. I love that. That's Richard Palmentier is a great example of what I hope to do here, which is to inspire people. And just because you're retired doesn't mean you no more work. Sometimes work can be very satisfying and rewarding and joyful. And then now you've got extra money coming in, right, from the work, and pursue something fun like building a PC. And as he continues to work, he keeps, getting more checks. I'm thinking he could add to his change. So I'm getting emails from him on a regular basis going, hey, would this work in my PC? Would this processor be better? Save your money, stuff like that. Chico wants to know if my monitor on the PC is coming apart. No, I just didn't put the sticky tape on straight. So what's holding that monitor to the glass is this black double-sided sticky tape. And it's so strong that once you apply it to the glass, there's no moving it, not without tearing the tape. So I did my best to kind of fix it, but that's the way it's been since the day I built it. It's not coming apart. It's just a little misaligned. Maybe someday I can get in there with an X-Acto blade and be very careful not to scratch the glass and just cut that little tail off of it. Again, if it was a smoked glass cover, you'd never see it. It's one of the downsides of having clear glass. Les Stevenson's checking out. All right, Les, thanks for joining us. Good to see you, my friend. Luke Greenius says the Intermax cooler that is cooling the i5 and the Mustex build has been awesome, and the build itself has been rock solid. Yeah, but that Intermax cooler is an air cooler, isn't it? It's not a liquid cooler. I can't remember what I built. You'll have to tell me. Planet Cryo says his hot dog builds never had an issue, and it serves him well in his garage where he can look up stuff fast while working on something. Yeah, these hot dog builds. So again, what I consider a hot dog build is probably a much higher standard than the hot dog builds that are sold on Amazon and eBay. So I'm not surprised to hear how well they're working. I would be surprised if they're still working well, like as an 8-year build. So once you've had them for 8 years, if they still continue to work. The thing is it's a little bit of a gamble. So with the hot dog builds, we're saving money, and it's mostly about aesthetic. They're not easy to work on. They often look really pretty, but they're just made of cheap components in order to get the price down, and you make up for it by dressing it up real. And it's a bit of a gamble because they're made of cheap components. They typically, in my experience, won't last as long, or they're more problematic. When I'm running a business, I don't want to gamble with my business. So that's why those machines were sent out to my most loyal and generous viewers here in the USA, who are willing to take on, and understand that these machines might be good. They might last a long time. They might not. Versus when I build a machine for a customer, I guarantee it's going to work. And I only use top quality components. Again, not the top quality components are immune from having issues. They're less likely. So it puts the odds far better in my favor for, staying in business and maintaining a profit. Mark Gaines wants me to check my email here. And Luke Greenius says, yes, the Intermax cooler is an air cooler. Well, I don't expect any issues with any air cooler from anybody. if it works, then it's probably going to work for as long as the fan spins. And then even then, it's easy to replace a fan, unless it's a proprietary fan, which is a different story. My concern with Enermax is their power supplies and their liquid coolers, which I have not had good luck with. And not just once, but over years. They just have consistently been, in my experience, poor performing. And I don't know, there's a part of me that's like, look, Enermax has been around 20 or 30 years. How is that possible if everything they make represents my experience? So clearly, most of their products must be fine. And maybe I'm just getting the short straw, the luck of the draw. But again, the fact that it happens as often as it has, I don't want to sell that to any of my customers and have that represent my work. At the same time, from time to time, I will review other Enermax products to see if they've gotten better. But so far, it's been pretty consistent over the last 10, 12 years. Just had a bad experience with power supplies and liquid coolers. Not that every one of them has failed, but the fact that they failed at all when power supplies from EVGA and NZXT, very rarely have I dealt with it. So you'll see me use a lot more of those power supplies because, I want to keep my customers happy. I want to stay in business. It's nothing personal against anybody or Enermax. It's just, this is my reality. This is my experience. And obviously I want to drive the business to what I think has the best value. That's likely going to keep me in business. Because if I can't stay in business selling computers that are reliable, then I don't deserve to be in business. Because at that point, you've got no excuse. But if what you're doing is you're buying the cheapest stuff possible so that you can still sell it at the same price as the expensive, quality stuff. I don't even want to say expensive. A lot of times the price difference is $10 or $20 for each component. So yes, if you're replacing 7 components and you're saving $10 or $20 off each one, that's a savings of anywhere from $70 to $150 on the build. That could be added profit in my pocket. Customer doesn't know any better. The customer's trusting me not to rip them off, not to sell them junk. So not only do I lose my customer confidence, but I ruin my reputation. And the profit, that extra $150, is nothing compared to the profit margin I can make when the customer orders again, tells their friends and family, or in some cases, they're a business owner or they've told the person they work for, hey, you should talk to Carey about replacing the computers in the office. That's how my business originally started. That's how I got into servicing businesses, was by handling consumer computers. Said, I got to tell my boss about you. And one thing led to another, and started doing managed service providing for businesses now, without any advertising, without me knocking on any doors. So compare that to a quick little profit versus a smaller profit, but over and over and over a long period of time. A lot of people don't think of tomorrow, right? They're playing a checkers game versus playing a game of chess. With the game of chess, you want to think about the next few moves of your opponent, potentially, what you're do. Got to think ahead. So while I might be hungry and need money today, I will be hungry again tomorrow. And I want to make sure that I don't have to work as hard. Ideally, the longer you stay in business, the easier things should get, because if you're doing a good job and you have good customers, they should keep coming back. So it's not like you have to keep finding new customers. That's 50% of being self-employed. Forget the job skill, forget the tools. You got to find the work. And I think a lot of people don't realize that one little part is a much bigger part. Without finding the work, there's nothing for you to do. There's nobody to build. There's no tools you need. So when people will reach out to me and say, I want to start a computer repair business, what tools should I buy? They want to know about software. They want to know about equipment. I always tell them the same thing. Go get something to fix. All right? Depending on what you've taken on, whatever you've found a customer who has something to fix, then buy the tools you need to do that repair. But you can't know in advance what that's going to be. So if I'm just starting out and I've never fixed a computer for a stranger before, we all have to start somewhere. And, I'm advertising or knocking on doors, and finally someone says, yes, I have a computer that needs repair. And they give me, let's say, an HP desktop, that I'm going to need a Torx bit for that. Well, go get yourself a Torx bit. Wherever you want to shop, just go get one. If they have a laptop that needs to be repaired, you might need a smaller precision driver. And depending on which type of screws that laptop manufacturer is using, that will justify buying that particular toolkit. Then over time, as you continue to get more work and you buy the tools as you need them, you will develop a toolkit that is appropriate for the work you're doing, that you're taking on, which will be unique to you, what you choose to work on, and what is in your area in abundance. There's going to be, depending on where you live, more laptops or more desktops or more Dells. You'll see as you get into the business that there'll be a prominence of certain types of equipment, and then you'll become very efficient at working on those things. And you'll clearly, if you're like most people, want to work on what you're familiar with, because it'll be very easy for you, because you already have all the tools and you're already familiar with what you're getting yourself into, which makes you more efficient, makes you faster, and it makes you more profitable. Check my email. All right, and then we're about to wrap it up. We're just about at 2 hours today. I have one new message from Mark Gaines, sending a $15 Amazon gift card. He says, I hope you enjoy this Amazon gift card. I'm wishing you and Marlena a peaceful and happy Christmas. Right on. Well, thank you, Mark. As I mentioned, Mark joined us all the way from Northern Ireland. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? Shame on me. Our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, sent a very generous Amazon gift card prior to the show starting. It's out of sight, not of mind. Thank you so much, Buster, and Merry Christmas. I know it's a tough few weeks here for you, but we're so happy that you're a part of our community. Thank you so much for all of your generosity throughout this year and previous years. And we're certainly looking forward to 2024. And Mara is really twisting my arm to get on a plane and go to Scotland. She really wants to go. And when we go, we're going to be knocking on your door, my friend. Darn tootin'. How old are you? I bet we could meet up with a bunch of our friends in Scotland. We have Ben Laird and Jamie McGregor. There's a bunch of our viewers, disproportionately per capita, Scotland of all places. Patrick says, when you go, bring the train PC. Well, hopefully we'll get that shipped after the first of the year. I know I keep saying I'm going to ship it, but I keep running into some issues I'm not quite sure how to resolve. If we were sending Buster a regular desktop, it would have been gone. The train is so easily damaged. I have to make a video explaining to Peter how it's going to have to be put together when it arrives, because I can't ship it assembled. But at the same time, it all has to be cabled up, which attaches the two cars. And we can separate the two cars by a few inches based on the cable length. But if I disconnect the cables so I can package it safely, it would be very difficult to get those cables hooked back up unless you have really small hands. I don't want to do that to Peter. So it's going to have to take like a day where I'm dedicated to just say, I'm not doing anything else today, shut off the phone, prevent the distractions. Let me get this figured out and get it shipped. Once I finally get that part solved, it's easy peasy from that point forward. And it's still sitting here. It's not like I've sold it to somebody else or anything. And literally, if it was anything else, it'd be a lot easier to ship. And it's part of the same delay I've got with Gregory Howard, he's got the coffee maker PC, which isn't anywhere near as complex to ship, and it's not going anywhere near as far. However, it's still extremely fragile. I've got to make sure that it's going to be shipped properly. And this is not a good time of year to do that because of the way packages are being handled right now. They're overwhelmed. The shippers are all overwhelmed with packages. And so in my experience, they get handled pretty rough. And if there's ever going to be damage in shipping, it's more likely going to occur this time of year, unless what I'm shipping is less likely to be like mini PCs. Those are pretty hard to damage in shipping. Something like this is virtually impossible to damage in shipping. But then we've got other things with glass and certain delicate natures to certain cases, which make them unusually prone to damage. And so to pick this time of year to ship it would be a risk. You know, it could arrive just fine, but I'd rather not go through all that effort only to have it arrive. That defeats everything. Richard Palmentier with a $5 super chat says, I know I've said it before, but thanks for teaching me and bringing value and satisfaction to me. Well, I think we teach each other. And I certainly appreciate you being part of this community. We're so happy to have you on board. And I really love when somebody emails me and there's sort of a newbie and there's a misunderstanding of how things work. It's a nice lesson for me to remind me I wasn't born with this knowledge. And a lot of what I take for granted is that, you know, I make this assumption that people know what I consider the basics. Back in 1991, when I first started professionally with computers, you used to have to explain to customers the difference between a hard drive and RAM. For the most part, you don't have to do that anymore. However, sometimes you still do. But back then, it was assumed you're going to have to, for every customer that comes in, you're going to have this discussion. How much storage do you want? How much RAM do you want? What's the difference? What do they do? And to complicate matters, back in 91, it was a 486. So you had a 486DX and a 486SX. There was a price difference between them. The customers want to know what's the difference. And if you just give them the technical answer, the DX has a math coprocessor, the SX doesn't. That means nothing. What does that mean? Do I need a math coprocessor? Well, I don't know. How are you going to use the machine? Now, that whole thing has gone away. All processors have math coprocessors now. However, because of how popular and common computers have become, things like RAM and storage, hard drives, are more or less known by the general public. But we still have an older generation that wasn't brought up with this stuff, some of whom are resistant. They don't want to learn. And that's a little frustrating to me, but to each their own. When we run into folks that are what we call digital immigrants, where they weren't brought up with it, but they express an interest, then they realize just how easy this stuff is. And a lot of times might feel silly about how intimidated they were about it and some basic misunderstandings. But I love to see people reaching out and wanting to learn. And especially people that are retired and they might think the learning's over. You're still alive, man. You know, that's up to you and how much more you want to have experience in your life. And so we have a number of viewers who are retired, who absolutely just love this stuff and perhaps didn't have any experience with it growing up. But, you know, speaking of which, we do have our friend Buster, who retired this year. And he's had computers, you know, since what looks like the 70s or 80s. And he sent me a picture today I want to share with you, which is him back in the day. Check this out. This is our friend Buster in Scotland about 40 years ago. So you can see, just because somebody's in that age range doesn't necessarily make them computer illiterate. Some people embraced it early on. Some people haven't even embraced it yet. And some people have been late to embrace it. Some people embraced it and then kind of gave up on it, let the technology pass them by, and then have a renewed interest sometimes after watching these videos, for example. Hey, I'd like to get back into that. And things have just gotten cheaper, easier to put together, and it's just very rewarding. Like I say, a lot of times when you build your own computer for the first time, it's very intimidating. There's a lot of anxiety. What if I screw it up? And you've got to conquer that. Just ignore it, move forward. If you run into any problems, not imaginary problems, not what if hypotheticals, but actual problems, come on into our live chat. We can help you with pretty much any computer issue you have. What we can't help you with is the anxiety and the imagination. That part you can keep to yourself. But when you have an actual real issue, I don't think there's one you can have that we cannot help you with. So use that as your reassurance that if there's any hesitation to take on a project like this, that we've got your back and we're here for you. Just jump into any live video, and between myself and the community, we can absolutely get it sorted no matter what it is. Uncle Carey was a philosopher in another life. Ben Laird said he set up an Alexa for a friend this morning. He did not have a clue where to start. Well, there you go. Michael Dane said his first computer was the Tandy Color computer, first edition. That wasn't a computer. I have to say, no, it was. I'm just being a geeky snob. Back in those days, for me, I had a TRS-80 Model 1, which is more of a business machine. And I don't know, I used to hang out at Radio Shack and play on the display computers for hours every day after school. And the color computer was on a separate display that was to my left, and I never touched it. I never had any interest in it. But we used to have next door to the Radio Shack inside of the shopping mall was a men's clothing store owned by this French gentleman. I don't know his real name, but his store was called Frenchie's. And we always called him Frenchie. I guess that's what he liked to be called. And he was your stereotypical Frenchman with the cigarette in perpetuity, always in his mouth, always smoking. And he would be playing, I don't know what he was playing, solitaire or some card game on the color computer. He'd walk over when the mall was slow and there weren't any customers. And he was the only guy running the store. So he'd walk next door to the Radio Shack where I was hanging out, and he'd start playing on the color computer, cigarette, and just swearing at the computer with that French accent. Was never not funny. But I would be over on the business machine, and the business machine was way better than my Model 1. They had a Model 4 that I could play with. Commodore T1000, I don't remember that. Richard says he's been interested in computers since they came out, and watching this channel gave me the incentive to build his own. Well, there you go. Everybody's got a different history and background. Whatever was your hesitation that prevented you from exploring it further, I'm glad that you found that incentive, and I'm sure you're glad too, because as I mentioned, it's very rewarding, and it's something you have to do yourself to appreciate, because it's not something I can hand you or that can be gifted to you. This is a sacrifice reward, very old school in the sense of basic human existence. To have this experience and to have the reward of that experience, which is the only way you can get that reward, is really inexplicable. It's a feeling you get. And you're never going to feel that feeling until you do make that effort. And when the effort has obstacles and the anxiety level goes up, and then you succeed, the reward is even sweeter, Even better. So glad that that you pursued that. Captain Blinsky says that's a cool pickup buster. Yeah, and I didn't know he had computer, that he himself was into computers back then. All right, well, I guess that'll wrap it up for today. I want to thank the folks over at MovesSpeed for sending us the unit for review. I'm very, very happy with this. I'm sure you'll see me use it in future videos next year. Also, thanks to all of you. I'll thank you for all your Super Chat contributions, your memberships, and your support and kindness. We will have more videos scheduled throughout the rest of this year. This is not a year-end show. We have another build. What am I doing Friday? I don't think I'm doing a build this Friday. We're saving up to do the big build Friday after. So between Christmas and New Year, whatever that Friday is, the 29th or something, 30th. We're going to do that AMD live mixer build. We'll do that live here. And maybe we should see what Mitch is doing. Maybe he can join us. And that'll be kind of our year-end blowout. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you again for your support and generosity. Thanks to Mara for today's thumbnail. What a thumbnail, huh? And yeah, that'll wrap it up for me for today. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.